keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let discrimination turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Gonna let discrimination turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. Gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking.
And welcome and good evening. Welcome to We Believe Digital Studios, broadcasting live from downtown Jackson, Mississippi, at the heart of the Deep South. And here tonight for the Sizzling in Mississippi program, Black Woman and White Man at the Crossroads. And right alongside, how are you doing, Mahati?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Today was a Tuesday, wasn't it?
It was a Tuesday.
Well, we're happy you're joining us. We've got some topics lined up for tonight. We noticed the viewership is elevating over time, and obviously we're really happy about that. So we've got some topics for tonight. We want to remind you the call-in number is 1-800-492-5186, or you can always join us in the chat. Last night we had 70-some people in the chat. We're very grateful for that. We really want to create a community. We really want engagement with our viewers, and because your voice is important, we need to, there's so many, pressures, dynamics going on in this world today, right, where people's voices get iced out. And we're not about that. We want to hear what you have to say. We might not be able to comment on every single item in the chat, but we'll do our best to keep the show moving and make sure that your voice is heard. You can come here, share your thoughts. We're trying to talk about relevant issues and so forth, and glad that you are joining us. So, and a quiz. I got a quiz. Got a quiz. So the quiz for tonight, and the reward is many snaps for whoever answers this, but in this month, in the month of December, in 1884, if you can imagine that, an African-American inventor, patented the first telephone transmitter. We hear so many people want to knock or belittle or slight in some way the achievements, the advancements of African-Americans, but if that's what you're about, you came to the wrong show, because that isn't the way it works. So what was that man's name? Patented the first telephone transmitter in 1884. Tell us his name. You're going to get the snaps. And Mahati, we always, trying to remind people, we want you to like the show. We want you to subscribe to the show so that you get your notifications, so you know when we're running, when we're not running. We want you to share with your friends and donate if possible.
Absolutely.
And that's what keep it going. So you want to kick us off tonight with the first topic?
First topic, the flag.
The brand new Mississippi State flag.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Boo.
Boo. She said boo.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not any better than the previous flag.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. They've done an end run on the citizens of Mississippi.
Okay.
It's the same flag.
Help us out with that.
All right. The white magnolia flower that sits in the center of the flag is the symbol for Southern white womanhood. So.
And it's been the state
flower
for
right.
And
ever.
I think it was designed by Elementary or something voted on or something. When it first came about, I think there's children involved.
For the magnolia flag?
Yeah.
I mean, magnolia flower to be, the official flower. Well, it's indicative of Mississippi, and it's everywhere. You know, it's on Welcome to Mississippi signs when you cross over the state line. But it is another racist attempt, and it's more cloaked than the previous. The previous was rather obvious, but anyone who's really familiar with symbolism and understands that the magnolia flower is considered the symbol for white Southern womanhood.
Never knew it. Never knew it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on the flag that I think I remember? Hey, way to go, Mr. Lewis! Got the snaps going to you, Mr. Lewis, on the quiz. Granville Woods was the first patented the telephone transmitter, and my God, what an invention! So way to go, thank you, sir. So I believe one time before you had mentioned to me something about the gold star at the top. Was that am I remembering that? Or maybe it was somebody else.
Probably someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the core issue.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and before that, you know, there was the Stennis flag. And I objected to that greatly as well. That was designed by a descendant of John Stennis, the former U.S. Senator from Mississippi, and overt racist. And I thought that was a terrible choice, and thank goodness we didn't get that one.
Right. So in a manner, so 125 years, African Americans lived under the stars and bars.
Right.
But what I view as blatant oppression.
Right.
You know, a celebration of the Confederacy.
Right.
And yet you're saying here we are with a new flag where we're rid of that stars and bars.
Right.
But it's more, what did you say, cloaked?
Yes, it's cloaked.
It's more cloaked. So just that because the magnolia, the state flower that they attach to, you know, the hospitality state.
Right.
You know,
which I don't know how we got that term.
I'm not sure how we got that term, but
you know, Mississippi has long offended persons who have come to Mississippi in an attempt to better Mississippi. So when you had Freedom Summer of 1964, and prior to that, the Freedom Riders, who were incarcerated for disturbing the peace, and they were sentenced to Parchment prison, both the men and the women. Yeah, and the horrors thereof. Yeah.
For riding for freedom.
Right. Yeah.
For voting rights and being human, being a full-fledged citizen.
Yeah.
We're going to lock you up.
Yeah, coming through Mississippi in a desegregated bus.
Not meaning to get too far away from the flag, and yet I was just doing some research over the last couple of days for an upcoming article in the Mississippi Link newspaper. And, you know, the incarceration rate in Mississippi is, well, it looks like it's very, very close with Oklahoma and Louisiana. But those three are picked out by a publication which took a deep dive, Stacker.com, took a deep dive into incarceration in Mississippi. And the average of the three states, the three highest states, is 1,056 people incarcerated for every 100,000 in population. Wow. And what that equates to is the highest incarceration rate in the world, because the United States incarcerates far and away,
Right.
more than any other country on earth.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary when you really think about that.
Yeah.
Just in itself. What is up with that on its own? But then you go to Mississippi, and U.S. News and World Report says Mississippi is 50th in incarceration, the highest incarceration rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now one other piece is that when you do the ratios, and boy, oh boy, I did them over and over and over because I wanted to make sure that I looked at it from every angle.
Right.
So the population of Mississippi, in ratio terms, is 1.54 white people to every one black to every one black person. 1.54 to every one. But the incarceration rate
Right.
is 2.8 African Americans to every one white person.
Right. Right.
Or European American.
Right. And we've discussed this before, but I don't think that it's 1.54 white people for every black person.
You think it's higher?
I think that there are more black people here than there actually.
So it would be
admitting
somewhat
to.
lower than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting you say that because, and I think we did mention this
Right.
before, but I went to a program on Saturday, and the judge, appellate court judge, was saying that he believes that the African American population in Mississippi is undercounted by about 7%.
I would suggest it's probably more than that.
Wow.
Right.
So, I mean, at 38%, so now you're looking up to 45 plus.
Yeah. Maybe 50, really. When you stop and consider it. I mean, look at Jackson. There's only 3 white neighborhoods in Jackson. And really, I should say 2.5.
Belhaven's really not a white neighborhood anymore.
Right. And neither is Fondren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eastover.
They have some black people, but that is majority white persons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, very interesting. And back on the flag, I mean, in terms of a summary statement, I mean, would you accept an improvement, but with a disclaimer that there's still cloaked connection to these horrible, horrible years?
I think that we should start all over again.
Start all over.
Right. Or even if we went back to the Stars and Bars, one thing about the Stars and Bars is, as terrible a symbol as it is, it's obvious.
I knew where you go.
So when you cross the state line, you know exactly where you are.
No mistake.
And you know what you should expect.
Wow. Wow.
You know. And it's a forewarning.
Yeah. Yeah, right on Front Street.
Right.
Welcome to Mississippi,
Yeah.
the capital of racism and oppression in the Deep South.
Right.
And we got some pretty good competitors, too.
Oh, yes.
Louisiana and Alabama.
Yes. Yes.
But
Georgia, South Carolina.
But I think we kind of reign supreme.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. I mean, everyone knows Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really tough. And when I think about, I'm really processing what you're saying, and it's so hard, because moving here from the mid-Atlantic state of Virginia,
Yes.
which has its own history,
Right.
and then to see this transpiring, and when when the legislature, passed the bill that set up the mechanism to repeal this in order to make room for the new flag.
Right.
That was on my birthday 2 years ago, and I hadn't moved to Mississippi yet, and so I'm like, wow, and I was up in Virginia, and I'm watching WLBT
Yes.
Jackson TV on the internet,
Sure.
and they were doing PSAs about the flag and everything, and my heart just filled with joy that we're getting away from that. You know, we're dropping those stars and bars. I never in a million years did I know there was a significance with the flower itself.
Right. But, you know, the other part of it is, you know, the flag is only symptomatic. Mm-hmm. And so removing a symptom is not solving the problem.
The issue. Right.
And so my take is that we should solve the problem first.
Yeah.
You know, too many people have felt that there's a victory in all of this.
Yes.
And I don't see it as a victory. It's the same thing with Ole Miss. You know, they got rid of Colonel Reb.
But keep the OLE.
Yeah, keep and they should keep it so that I know not to go there. You know, when they recruit black players, they need to think about what OLE means.
Pardon me.
And it means Old Mississippi.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like the, the tens of $1 million spent to restore the old state capitol building.
Right.
On State Street. Here
Right.
you have this new, but the old one has been brought back like, like it's a prized possession.
Right. And I mean, it sits in the middle of Capitol. When you look down Capitol Street, you'll see at the end that there's the old state capitol building. There's a problem with that. And it's an old, back to the way to old Mississippi, lest we forget.
Well, we can't forget.
No.
The past is cherished.
Yes.
And every time we cherish the past, we slap African Americans in the face.
Right.
We slap indigenous people in the face.
Right.
We slap other people of color in the face.
Well, it's an insult. And again, symbols and symptoms. Mm-hmm. But we have to really rid ourselves of the institutionalized and systematic racism.
Right.
That's what needs to happen. That's the problem with Jackson. The reason why Jackson looks the way it does is because of institutionalized systematic racism.
Deprivation of resources.
Right.
And we don't deprive people of resources if we have positive regard for them.
Right. Right. We don't do that, in Madison.
No, not going on up in Tupelo.
No, it's not going on in Flowood.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's really. Here we are down here, and dealing with this every day, and yet when you burrow down,
yes,
when you burrow down on the topic, it's just a sadness because you know what the root problems are,
right,
and there's nobody that I can see with my own eyes that's really in a positive forward gear trying to change that.
Right, right.
And here we are doing the show to try to bring this to light, hopefully over time. I mean, sometimes the solution seems so obvious, but yet if nobody's solution-minded,
right,
nothing's ever going to materialize.
Right. Well, see, changing of the flag was not a solution-minded action.
We need to tell the viewers why that happened.
Well, it happened because Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Southern Mississippi, they were having difficulty recruiting black football players.
Gee.
So, you just throw a hood over it and keep going.
And then I would love to meet someday this SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey. Yeah. I'd love to meet Mr. Sankey someday because he laid down an ultimatum. And he said that flag, apparently, so he viewed that flag as the symbol for the state, which over the top of
right,
all this other behavior that would keep up recruiting and everything. And he said there will be no more SEC championships in the state of Mississippi.
Right.
The championship games will not go on in the state of Mississippi so long as you keep flying that old flag.
right, right.
Poof.
Right.
pull a
Right.
rabbit out of my hat.
Right.
I mean, quick like a bunny.
Right. And I mean, I know people who had been fighting to remove that flag for years and were.
To no avail.
To no avail, just ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and then, as you see, that's rather hypocritical of them anyway, because they don't have black coaches.
That's true.
I would rather him say, put some black coaches in the SEC, or we're not, wherever there isn't black coaching, where there's no attempt to black coaching, where there's no preparation, no recruitment of black coaches, we're not going to deal with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a difference.
I wonder if we reach out to Commissioner Sankey. I wonder if he'd come on the program. I'm trying to keep a straight face.
Yeah. I don't think
I will email.
Okay.
I will call. Just like I emailed Roland Martin today.
Okay.
And Roland Martin was in town for the game last weekend, and he is back, coming back into town, I believe, the day after tomorrow, because he's the commencement speaker at JSU on Friday.
Okay.
How about that?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's had some comments to make about people that's taking a stance on Deion Sanders leaving JSU and was highly critical of broken hearts.
I heard it said today by someone as we transition away from the flag. I heard it said today, it's not that he left, it's how he left.
Right.
And that kind of gets you to stop and think about different perspectives and all.
Right.
And I also heard today from a stop and think about different perspectives and all.
Right.
And I also heard today from a man who I greatly admire. His name is Harold Hart, and he runs the Elim's photography and art over at the Jackson Medical Mall.
Yes.
And just a fine young man. He also served in the Navy. I mean, I'm just going to throw that in there.
Oh, right.
That we had that in common.
Okay.
And he said, Chris, you know what? Nobody asked. I said, what's that, Harold? He said, nobody asked what was the counter offer. Did Jackson State make a counter offer?
Yeah. Or given the opportunity to do so.
Or given the opportunity. I guess they would, yeah, one way or the other.
Right. I mean, if a decision's already made and,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Monty, we just went blowing right by that 20-minute mark for the first segment. Yeah. So we're just going to dip out for a minute and let you meet Mason and hear about the Mississippi Link newspaper, 29 years in continuous operation. We'll be right back.
Let's read and learn together. Meet Mason. Written by Sherry Tate. Illustrated by David. Mason is a young, inspired learner. Walk with him as he uses his five senses to explore the world around him. Your young one can learn to identify shapes, numbers, letters, and more with Meet Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, Keepers of the Knowledge for People Who Speak the Truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippilink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Sizzling in Mississippi on We Believe Digital African American owned and operated broadcast studio here in downtown Jackson, Mississippi. We start out in the first segment talking about this Mississippi flag, learning new information that I suspect not everyone knows about the flag. And the next thing we've got on our list to get into is you want to go here?
The Georgia election?
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, it's not Mississippi, but so close with these elections going on in Georgia. And so let's just try to chop that up for a few minutes, and then we're going to then maybe move on to the next topic. But big day today in Georgia. I mean, tens of millions of dollars spent.
Yes.
You know, and you have this Raphael Warnock that barely got in there the last time.
Right.
And then, and now up against Herschel Walker, right. Raphael Warnock, pastor, Democrat, Herschel Walker, football player extraordinaire, and Republican, and they're going off against each other. And election day today, I mean, the polls will be, well, they're an hour ahead. They're an hour. Polls have already closed over there.
Right, they should have closed.
I wonder if the lines. I wonder if they got long lines. So
they do. They had 2 million people to vote early,
exceeding the previous numbers. Right.
Yes, even though they shortened the time span to the opportunity to vote early.
Well, that's in the trick book.
Right.
You know,
right.
that's been
Yeah, they've been doing that. But it hasn't mattered, and really it's an important election even for Mississippians because this is on the federal level, and this is going to help determine the legislation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The budgeting.
Absolutely.
Federal budgeting, and so it's important. This is something that Mississippians need to look at.
What would your perspective on? Starting with Warnock, do you have a perspective of him so far?
Well, he seems like a fine gentleman, and I think that he will vote his conscience, and he'll vote in a way that helps other people. Herschel Walker is a different story for me.
Yeah, sometimes when I hear you, and sometimes when I listen to Warnock, I'm not so sure. Something seems to be missing. I don't know how to describe it, but he casts the right votes and everything.
Right.
It seems to be the votes for democracy, et cetera, and
right.
fairness and equality.
Right.
Always seems to be on the proper side of the ledger. And although I think maybe he's just not fond of the public speaking that comes along with it and all.
Yeah, maybe, which is kind of strange, being that he's a minister.
A pastor.
Yeah, and a Baptist one at that.
Yeah.
I would expect a little more fire.
Yeah.
But
hey, we got Mr. Williams coming in, reporting so far reported 63.2% Warnock, 37.1% Walker.
Wow.
So, yeah, we'll see. Thank you, Mr. Williams. And I just want to make sure we didn't overlook. We really did. No, that sister would tear him apart. Who are we talking about? Sister would tear him apart. Wait now. Yesterday, Monty could not understand Prime is going to be a black coach at a primarily white institution. I
didn't think it was valuable. And I still don't. I think he's better off, and I think we're all better off with him staying with the HBCU, with SWAC or MEAC or whoever. I think that he should stay with us. I think that it will allow him to be legendary. I don't think he'll get legendary status at predominantly white institution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially Colorado.
Yeah. It's going to be an eye opener.
Right.
I think in this process, I mean, I don't mean to sound lofty, but I think we're going to learn. I think we're going to learn something from all this process. Maybe we're going to learn stuff about ourselves through all this.
Yeah, but it's painful.
It hurts.
It hurts like heck. I mean,
one of the things that I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that was said today was that early on,
Yes.
Coach Prime said he had a calling.
Yes. Right.
And even the show before ours tonight, I don't know if any of the viewers got to watch the Brent Hazard show that was on before ours started tonight, but they were talking about all this, and then they got down into the nitty gritty. Well, what does it mean to have a calling? And one person was saying, well, just because you have a calling, you answer the calling, that doesn't mean that that's permanent. And then another person said, well, my interpretation of having a calling is that you answer the call and that you're dedicated.
Right. And you stay.
Implying staying longer.
Right. And well, you stay in that place until your mission is complete.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that Sanders' mission is not complete.
How do you mean that?
Well, he has 2 successful seasons.
Yeah.
But the processes that he was working on and putting in place, such as recruitment of other professional retired athletes,
right,
and putting them back into HBCUs, and not just them, but other people, actors, actresses, all types of people that can come into HBCUs.
Right.
As their own special calling, and come and build up the infrastructure, store it up, you know.
Flourish it out.
Yes, and that hasn't happened yet. It's just hasn't been enough time.
Yeah.
You know.
Got some planks in place, but not all the
right
nooks and crannies filled in all around to make it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, I'm disturbed about it because I think, and this is just my opinion, is that it was undermining for Colorado to even approach Deion Sanders.
Well, they're not caring about us.
No, they don't.
No.
No, they don't care.
But that's an interesting concept, though.
Yeah.
Because so they just, and I did hear today that they've been around since 2011, and they won some type of 2 championships out there, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, it was like almost 30 years. Cordell Stewart when he was playing for Colorado.
I must have got that confused because I thought they said, or did they say maybe the last one was 2011?
The last one, I believe, was Cordell Stewart when he was playing out there.
Okay.
And so that was in the 1990s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a hurting thing when we get momentum here.
You know, it just crossed my mind. Did I interrupt you?
Yeah, and the momentum stops. Go ahead.
And the momentum stops.
Yes.
You know, it just went flying through my mind. So now, you're Colorado, you want to hire a black coach.
Right.
You have no black coaches. You don't have lots of black people.
Right.
You want to recruit black players.
Right.
Gee.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
Right.
And you want to recruit this black coach. But in order to get this coach, you're causing havoc to a black community and a black institution.
Right.
And you're not a black institution.
Right. There's damage.
The more we talk about this, it's like the more layers unfold.
Right. I mean, there's collateral damage.
Yeah.
You know, the city of Jackson has just been victimized by this.
Here we go. Thea Irby, all the way from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Welcome, Thea. She says, why? He's legendary now. Who decides his mission is not complete?
It's obvious that it's not complete. That's why. I mean, it's easy enough to see. That's not a difficult.
She says it's a business.
Well, no, calling isn't a business, though.
Right.
Right.
And now with the name, image, and likeness and all that, the college athletics becoming more and more of a business.
Right.
Mr. Floyd, I think, talking about the flourish, economy and infrastructure is, he's tying that in.
Yeah.
There's another comment here. In the movie The Blues Brothers, they were on a mission from God, and they completed the mission by getting the money to the tax assessor to save the institution
Right.
and the culture. He didn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So many layers. And we thank you, everybody, for your comments in the chat. We really appreciate you becoming part of the community here, Sizzling in Mississippi, just trying to talk about this stuff, and maybe in ways that are not always, I got it over here, Dex, and not always, talked about, and to be able to get as many, different perspectives as possible, especially at a time in our country where, everybody, me or you, all or nothing,
Right.
black or white,
Right.
Nobody wants to hear anything about gray.
Right. Yeah.
I remember, Joni, when I was this tall, and I know I told you this before at your bookstore many times before, but my mother telling me, Christopher, it's not always black and white. There's 1,000 shades of gray. And that was a great thing for her to tell me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of opened you up to look at different situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in more
not-
of a 360 degree.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Instead
yeah.
of just one way or the
Right,
other.
Right. It doesn't come down to money because it can't come down to money.
Yeah.
You don't go to an HBCU for money. When I attended Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia, I would take classes at Morehouse. They allowed us to do that, and I'm not crazy, so that's why I ended up at Morehouse, the all-boys college, all-men's college. So, but I had an economics professor there, and he said, your starting salary will be more than what I make here. But he said that he's devoted to educating our people.
Yeah.
And so it was worth it for him to deal with less. And I mean, he was making $24,000.
More than, so translating more to it than football.
More to it than football.
And
It
yet
always
Dion,
did.
if Dion was here now, he's going to say, I'm a football coach.
Yeah, well, okay, I can flip a pancake too.
Yeah. It just goes deep.
It really does, because you can't use the words calling, and you can't come in and say thee I love, and then abandon, and think that that's going to be okay. It's not okay with the people. It's not sitting well with us. Many of us, not everyone. Everyone. Some people are like, well, it's money. Well, it's really not.
And yet, how much you want to bet if he were to drop in a year from now and walk out on that field, everybody in the stadium be on their feet clapping.
Yeah, we'd be glad to see him back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here we are again up on the second break, Monty. So we're gonna we try to stay on a topic and we end up going back and forth, but I think that's good because we just get what we need to get, and hopefully you're getting what you need to get, and there's some meaningful to you, and we're so glad you're joining us. We're just gonna duck out for 2 quick commercials, and we'll be right back with you for the final segment.
Let's read and learn together. Meet Mason. Written by Sherry Tate. Illustrated by David. Mason is a young, inspired learner. Walk with him as he uses his 5 senses to explore the world around him. Your young one can learn to identify shapes, numbers, letters, and more with Meet Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
The Mississippi Link is an African American female owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, Keepers of the Knowledge for People Who Speak the Truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippilink.com and click on Home Delivery.
And welcome back to Sizzling in Mississippi, black woman and white man at the crossroads. And we're just picking up. We got a direction we're thinking of for this final segment. And but we did get a comment up in the chat. There goes Miss Irby. And she said that she heard that Prime was booed at the game. And that he stayed his season. And I hear that. I really hear that that's a way to view it all. And
what's he booed? You were there.
I was at the game. I was up in the cheap seats, let me tell you, maybe 20 steps from the very top of the stadium on our side, and I didn't hear any booing.
I mean, at the time of the game, no one knew.
For sure.
Didn't.
Yeah.
Right, the fans didn't.
Yeah, it wasn't definitive just yet.
There were rumors, but that was it.
And Mr. Lewis talking about the Kyrie Irving situation, talking about the economics and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Was it Adidas or Nike? Somebody just clipped
him.
Nike. Thank you, Dex. Clipped Tyree. And Mr. Lewis says, so in other words, as long as they're winning, it's the I love, or should the team get his support from the fans no matter what, especially since it's HBCUs? Good point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're always going to love Jackson State, and we're always going to love HBCUs. But when we feel an affront has been made, we're going to say something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because we care.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And I can't tell if it looked like Miss Irby again. That's true and not appropriate at all, but it was how they found out because Texas A&M leaked the story. I'm not sure. I don't know. I didn't know that, Thea. This is the first time I'm hearing about that. Yeah. So you're saying before he made the announcement, Texas A&M had leaked that he had signed a paper or something like that? We'll wait and see.
Okay.
Well, Mati, we've got 15 minutes left, and we had talked before. We're gonna try to talk a little bit about the poverty of Mississippi and the racial aspects of the poverty. Yeah. So, Mr. Lewis is confirming that apparently Texas A&M had leaked that story. That's the first time I'm hearing about it.
Right, I haven't heard that.
I'm glad I came to the show today because right. I was clueless. Thank you very much. Didn't know that part. Right. So, how do you begin? How do you begin to talk? We talked about the population numbers maybe skewed way low.
Right.
Officially, the census says 38% black in Mississippi,
yes.
and 58.8% white.
Yeah.
And so, pardon me, got distracted. And so, and how do you begin to look at this poverty? And then we have the city of Jackson, where we absolutely know that, so statewide the census says that the poverty level is 19. the poverty level is 19.4%.
So that's really kind of averages out to 1 in 5 persons.
1 out of every 5 people in Mississippi is going to be living below the poverty line.
Right. Yeah.
And
that is true. Think about the people who are living near the poverty line.
yeah, and
How
all
many
that
days?
can't be
Yeah.
true in Jackson. That's overall for the state.
Yeah, yes, right. But what I'm saying is, you have this line and you're saying that this amount of money, that if people make less than that, they are definitely impoverished.
Right.
But even those who are like right around that same level are going to be
On the
impoverished
fringes
as
of
well.
that. Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And that's a lot more, that's a lot of people.
that's a lot of people.
Right. So instead of 1 in 5, we may be talking about two out of 5, or 2.5. Who knows? There is a lot of poverty here, and if you're sort of used to it, after a while you don't see it as much. You don't really appreciate it as much. But if you leave here and you go to other cities, in other states, it's obvious.
It's 552,000 people
Wow.
in Mississippi.
Uh-huh.
So we don't have quite 3 million people in Mississippi.
No.
But 552,000 of those people
Whoa.
live below the poverty line. And then when you start talking about, well, okay, that's an established line, but there's a whole other chunk of people that are right near that line. They're not at that line, but
Right.
they're pretty darn close to that line.
Right.
What does that do to those numbers? So you understand hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in Mississippi in poverty, and of the black population, as best I can tell, and especially relying on the source, which is actually called welfareinfo.com, 34%. Or 384,000 are black people. 384,000 of the 1.13 million black people live in poverty.
So 1 in 3.
34%.
Yeah.
Versus, you know what's coming next?
Right. White.
13%. So
That's huge. That's a huge difference.
This is why we want to bring this up, because the inequality, the lack of balance, it's just every single where you turn in Mississippi.
Right.
But that's the other thing too. If you're looking at everything, you see these things.
Right.
But if black people and people of color and indigenous people are invisible to you, well, you don't see that. Everything's hunky-dory.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to point out. In Mississippi, 13%, 200, not that it's not a lot of people, 215,000 people, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it represents 13%,
Right.
whereas it's 34% for black people in this state.
But see, poverty for black people in Mississippi is historic.
Yes.
I've spoken with a lot of elders who have told me how much money they made,
Yeah.
50, 60 years ago. And at that time, there was a minimum wage.
Right.
And Mississippi ignored it.
Yeah.
You had women working in homes making $2 a day, and that was average. Or if you're picking cotton, $3 a day.
Right. Wow. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I have so many different thoughts right now, but I'm going to hold out hope for my representative based on my a street address.
Yes.
Because they pick us, we don't really pick them.
Right.
But my representative in the Mississippi legislature is Bo Brown.
Okay.
You know, the sportsman.
Yes.
Everybody knows him for sports. He also a state legislator for many, many years in this part-time legislature down here in Mississippi. And I asked him, hey, Representative Brown, what are we going to do about this minimum wage? How in the, you know what, can you raise a family, even if you have 2 grown-ups in the house?
Yes.
Bringing in money. How and let's say you got a couple of kids or 3 kids.
Yeah.
How do you do that? And I put out for him, you know, the numbers for rent, transportation, groceries, insurance, you know, all the different numbers and stuff like that, gas, food, you know, and he had said to me, well, put something together, put your thoughts together for me and send it to me, and I'll write a bill.
Okay.
And, you know, this was about 6 weeks ago. I don't recall right now, but I want to say that we're one of 12 states in the country that just opt out and rely on whatever the federal government has. In other words, Mississippi ain't going to write a law about it.
No.
They'll just, by default, accept the federal government, $7.25 an hour.
Yes, yes.
When you got places like Washington, D.C., and Portland, Oregon at $15 an hour.
Right.
Passing laws.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They have to ignore that because nobody's going to work for that amount of money there. But there is embedded in this culture poverty for black people.
Yeah.
First of all, we're supposed to be happy that we're making anything because 150 years ago we worked for free.
Oh yeah, so you better not say a word.
Right.
Just be grateful.
Yeah, just be great. Why are you complaining all the time? That's all you people do is complain. Well, we have a reason for it. And when you look at these statistics, it shows and it tells us why.
Yeah, and one of our viewers, Mati, is saying, I see, like y'all said earlier, the old Capitol building was renovated, but who funded it? And why we can't do that to buildings on Fair Street, to the buildings that's salvageable, and tear down the other ones that's not salvageable. You know, interesting how that works. So you can take taxpayer money because you decide that that's a priority,
right?
Because that was the old, you know, I mean, what do they do with the old bank? What do they do with the old McDonald's?
Right.
Do they cherish that forever because it,
no.
So there's people at the very top that make these decisions, right? Mr. Williams. They make these decisions, and you're right. So, but if we try for 1 minute to take a taxpayer dollar to pour it specifically into Fair Street, they come unglued.
Well, I mean, look at the store in Money, Mississippi.
Oh, the Carolyn...
the Bryant store.
The Bryant store.
Right. You know, they don't want to preserve that. And it's a 2-story building that now the second story has collapsed. And it's really a monument. And it should be treated as such. But it has fallen into such disrepair that, you know, within a few years, it really won't even be there. It's barely there now.
I guess the CRT people got a hold of them.
Yeah, well, you know how it goes here. Anti-CRT. You don't want to make people sad who are in power.
Right.
And not that they would be sad, but maybe they'd just be a little bit embarrassed at certain times.
Imagine that.
Yeah, when they have to go outside the state.
But if you or I do something in our lives that we're embarrassed by, and I can't speak for you, but I can definitely speak for me that different things have come up in my life that I'm embarrassed by.
Sure.
I got to pay the piper on that.
Right.
Because that's what grown-ups do. They're accountable for their actions.
Right.
So I just...
But, you know, there's no apology. And they say that they're afraid to apologize because then the next action would be reparations.
Right.
So we can't get an apology. But not only do we not get an apology, we don't get an acknowledgement.
We can't get an acknowledgement. We can't get an apology. And so we can't be whole. We can't be whole in our hearts,
right?
Because ultimately, somewhere down the line, that may cost money.
Right. And so as a result of that, we have poverty too. See, that's one of the reasons for the poverty. So you maintain the status quo of domineering, over a race of people so that others can feel comfortable. Others don't have to compete with black people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's come up on this show before, but I did an analysis, and recently I redid the analysis. God, it's time consuming to go to all these state websites.
Yeah.
But we have all these agencies. I don't have the paper in front of me right now, but I'm going to say very close to 140 state agencies in Mississippi. Think that one through for a second.
It's a lot.
And the heads of those agencies are 94+% European American.
Yes.
94%. How do you make that make sense? Like the Mississippi Supreme Court, you have one black member of a 9-member court.
Yeah. It's not representative.
Not representative.
Right.
And those folks at one point or another, how many times are they dealing with decisions through the appeals process or whatever,
right.
court of last resort, that end up connecting to incarceration?
Right.
And we're the biggest incarcerator in the world.
Right. Or worse. Death penalty.
Or worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so phenomenal. We just touched the wow, Mr. Williams made $7.25 as a dishwasher in 1994. And that's the federal minimum wage level now, and that's what's being used in Mississippi right now.
Yes.
To keep wealthy people wealthier and keep poor people poorer.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. And we've been talking about this now for looks like about 14 minutes, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
Right.
We could talk about this for weeks and never repeat ourselves, going different slices of the pie, different angles and all.
Right. Right.
It's a very sad commentary, and I think it's going to take a miracle, and I think it's going to take enormous amounts of pressure. I really would like to speak to that Mr. Sankey, because I believe I could learn something from him. I'm no SEC commissioner. What do I'd really love to learn more, the deeper levels of that, maybe behind the scenes kind of stuff that the public wasn't privy to.
Right.
Because we need to find levers to pressure this bad behavior.
Right.
I love the expression, Mati. Most people change not because they see the light, but because they feel the heat. Yeah. And we're sizzling in Mississippi, and we need to muster that heat and apply it in the right places, or else we're just not getting any change.
Right.
I mean, and a lot of people say, "Oh, well, things are better than they were." Yes, but you've been trained over the years to accept breadcrumbs.
Right.
Yeah.
And why are they better? Or is it better because the minds of the powerful have been changed?
Right.
Or is it better because of the heat that's been applied?
That's right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's when people change, right?
Right. That's how they change.
Yeah. Well, we thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. We really appreciate your comments on this Tuesday night show. We're going to be back here tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with another live episode. Remember to share with your friends, like and subscribe. Definitely share with your friends, and they can lock us in. And maybe 6 o'clock is not a good time for viewing for a lot of people, but later on in the evening, maybe there's time. Or on the weekend, there's time. You can catch up and so forth. So, but subscribe to us, and then we'll be locked in, and you can keep up with what's going on with the show, and again, that way too, we can hear your voice and what you've got to share on the show. Any parting comments before we roll on out?
Well, stay optimistic and read a book.
Read a book. I love it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night and stay safe out there.
Turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, walking on the freedom land. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around, turn me around. No, turn me around. Ain't gonna let injustice